What's going on, everybody? This is Will from the Commander Duo, coming at you with a Kruphix deck profile. I'd say this is going to be more of like Kruphix the Sheriff. It's very control, little diplomatic, but it's still got some mean stuff going on. This is one of my favorite decks, but between our friend group it gets hated off the table, so I haven't played it in a while. It's a little dumbed down in regards to its power level, and it's a little more budget at the moment, but regardless, I hope you enjoy the video, and I'll definitely go over some different things you can swap in to make it even more budget, or vice versa. So first thing first, I had to of course get the new Kruphix art, just gorgeous. So if you don't know what Kruphix does, it's an enchantment god / creature, and it's only a creature once its devotion is met, which is 7 between green and blue, and it gives you no maximum hand size. Sorry, getting over a cold, so it's hard to breathe. And if I would lose unspent mana, it becomes colorless instead. So it's nice when you bring him out. He's an indestructible enchantment, so unless you counter it, he's kind of annoying to get off the board, and you can just kind of sit there banking mana even if you don't have any good plays right away. So that is one thing that's great, and no maximum hand size says we need to draw cards. This is just a little thing that keeps track of your colorless mana, so because it doesn't empty, you know, you might have 15 mana just sitting there, and you know, you gotta have a way to keep track of it. You can just put it off to the side if you want, but I like to have my own little mana counter. So starting things off with creatures, we have our mana ramps, in a sense, or mana dorks, however you want to call them. They just generate us mana, and it goes into our pool. So we have the Gyre Engineer. It taps for a green-blue, very nice, gets us our colors. Same thing, this one's it's cool because it's a 2/2 flyer, so it actually can block scary flyers and swing if we really don't need the mana. So great green-blue card. Then we have our Elvish Mystic, taps for green. Weaver of Currents, pretty cool, taps for 2 colorless specifically, and it's still only a 3 mana drop. So, and then in any deck that wants mana, can't go wrong with the turn 1 birds. And then to wrap up the leader of our mana rocks, we have Kinnan. Makes them tap for an extra, and if we have just extra mana lying around and we have nothing to do, because sometimes it'll be like that when we have too much mana, nothing to play, Kinnan's gonna be clutch. So that's it for those guys. Moving on here, we have Coma. Great card. We're going on to the like medium tiered monsters now. So those are just the babies. Coma, if you don't know what it does, it's just amazing. So every upkeep, not just yours, but every upkeep, it creates a 3/3 blue serpent named Coma's Coil. And then Coma has a built-in ability where if you sack a serpent, you can either tap a permanent and make its abilities not be able to be activated, or just gain indestructible. The first ability is way more important, but if you're gonna get board wiped and Coma can live, it's crazy. This thing is a monster, and you can't counter it when it's summoned. So lot of value. Great card. Alright, next we have the Wandering Archaic. So it has 2 different abilities. I'll flip it for you. One is just a sorcery. It's kind of meh. It's not bad. But this ability is great. Whenever opponent casts an instant or sorcery, they may pay 2. If they don't, you get to copy it. So this just sitting out there, generates value for you if they're doing Cultivate or something like that, and they don't have the mana to pay. You're going to grab a Cultivate with them and do it too, or they're gonna try to Path to Exile and they don't have enough mana to stop it. You're gonna Path to Exile too. It's just amazing card. Next we have a bigger boy here. We have our Apex Devastator. Cascade. Being that it's a 10-drop, it's gonna potentially get you into some pretty big stuff, and it's a 10/10 on its own. So, and the nice thing about it is it's 8 colorless. So sometimes when you just have the colorless mana banked up through this, we're gonna just unload it on this guy, use 2 green, and basically we're just playing the lottery to see what we get. But awesome card. Seedborn Muse. This card will get hated off the board. You need to protect it. If not, if you have no protection, it's probably not worth even casting. I mean, untapping all your permanents during each other player's untap means we're gonna, at the end of their turn, always tap any artifacts we have, any creatures that tap for mana, and any lands. It just generates us so much value. It's crazy. A little toxic though. People get pretty mad at Seedborn. I mean, just so good. Moving on to our first Eldrazi, one of our baby Eldrazi's is the Endbringer. So he untaps on each other player's untap step, so he can ping things for 1, which is nice. And then he can also make a creature not attack or block for 1 colorless, which is pretty powerful. And then when we just have extra mana, nothing to do, we can pay 2, tap him, draw a card. Next, one of my personal favorites is the World Breaker. Super cool artwork. When he comes into play, or when you cast him specifically, I should say, you get to exile an artifact, enchantment, or land. So this bad boy removes land. He's a 5/7 with reach, and you can sack a land and bring him back to hand. So he has replayability. Moving on to the terrifying Praetors here. The first we have is Jin-Gitaxias Korogger. I mean, this card is just insane. The fact that he has flash too. Draw 7 on your end step, reduce your opponent's maximum hand size. This is another one of those cards where he is going to be hated off the board, and for good measure too. This is a very mean card. This is part of the package where your friend group questions why they're playing with you. So yeah, if you have a easily triggered friend group or play group, I'll go over a few different cards you can run instead of these guys, because they are very scary. I really love their effects. They are very mean, but also their artwork is cool. They're like Praetor gods, essentially. Pretty sweet. New one from Kamigawa, the next Praetor, the other Jin-Gitaxias, also very good. And a little bit less mana to play too, and the artwork is amazing. So I thought I'd throw him in. I have yet to play it, actually, with this guy. And then we got Vorinclex, because what's wrong with double mana? And then he, of course, being a Praetor, makes our opponent's lands tap, or not untap during their next untap step, which is very gross. So yeah, pretty much every big thing we have is going to get hated off the board, essentially. I mean, you're going to be a big target with these, but hopefully with the security package I'll be going over here, you should be okay. Now I run one of the Titans each, Emrakul the Promised End, the one that's not banned. Crazy good card. It could be up to like 5 or 6 less, depending on how many card types you have in your graveyard. Take someone's turn if someone's about to win or someone's very scary. Use their turn to essentially just take care of your other threats, or just put them behind. You're gonna make someone mad. People get mad at Magic. It is what it is. Badass card, and it is also one of the legendary Eldrazi Titans, so gotta have them. Next we have Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre. Annihilator 4, indestructible. It's pretty gross, and it destroys a permanent on cast. These are those big guys you get out when you just need to start removing stuff. Again, it'll be hit off the board, but it's indestructible, so they're going to need to probably exile it or bounce it or whatever. Last, we have Kozilek, the Butcher of Truth. Cast, draw 4 cards. Annihilator 4 gets shuffled. It's just great. It's a 12/12. The Titans are just amazing. These are kind of like your boss monsters of the deck, your big boy plays that you have, and it's all colorless. So you'd be surprised how easy it is just to have a pool of 10 to 15 mana just sitting there with nothing to put it into. And then again, I'll go over some alternatives if you're on a budget or if you want to be a little less mean. But yeah, anyways, this deck is dumbed down a lot in regards to how mean it used to be. So we have a Simic Signet, give us some mana. We have a Mana Crypt. If you can't afford Mana Cryptors, don't have the money because they're insanely expensive. You can replace it with an Arcane Signet or any talisman, generic mana. It's fine. Don't need it, but it definitely speeds up your plays. Talisman of Curiosity, Mana Vault. This and Crypt are literally just for getting Kruphix out super early. Earlier he's out, the quicker you can stack up the mana. Sensei's for, manipulating your hands you're gonna get, and when you have extra mana to sink into, it's just nice. Soul Ring, Doubling Cube. This card's so good in this deck. Double the amount of each. Oh, sorry if it's unfocusing. Double the amount of each type of mana in your mana pool. You pay 3 to do it. So with this, it's very, very easy to understand. So you have 7 in your pool. You use 3 of it to tap its ability. You have 4 left. It doubles to 8. So the more you have, the more you value. You're not getting much value if you don't have a big pool, but it also doubles your green and blue for the turn. Assuming you're tapping, like, let's say you tapped 5 blue and then you use colorless to double it, you're gonna get 10 blue. So it fixes your colors too. Cool card. Thought Vessel, unlimited hand size, taps for 1. In case Kruphix isn't out, I mean, it's alright. Then we got Planar Bridge, so when we have our excess mana, this is great. It's not actually that expensive of a card either. It's 6 to drop though, and 8 to do the ability, so it's best to use this when you have a lot of mana to work with. Jeweled Lotus for the early game. Kruphix, again, if you're on a budget, just replace this with some kind of mana rock or mana ramp. These are just ways that I can get Kruphix out as early as possible because he's very hard to remove early game. Veldalkin Ori, this is great for flash. This lets us use our mana and actually be able to play cards in other players' turns. Can give you a lot more control over the game and how you play your turns. Because sometimes you're going to have turns where you just don't do anything and then you just tap your lands or your mana on someone's end phase. Isochron, this card is insane. I think it's so great. Super powerful card. I mean, with the amount of instants we run in here that are 2 or less, there's so much we can do. I do have the Dramatic Reversal. So, yes, the deck can go infinite. It's the only way it can. I'm not a fan of infinite combos. But this deck with infinite mana rarely has ways to guarantee a win unless you have one of those X draw spells. I mean, it can pretty much make the game feel like it's over, but it doesn't have any like infinite actual combos that guarantee your win. So yeah, it's just a way. I'm just not a big fan of it. Wilderness Reclamation, powerful card. Untap all your lands. I mean, we're blue, so I mean, to have cards in your hand, reset your whole land base, and just kind of wait on important stuff. Because again, any one of our creatures, any one of these big guys, you're gonna want to protect them if you can. Defense of the Heart, good luck getting this to resolve, but if it does, as long as someone has 3 or more creatures, which is almost always at some point in the game, we get to search our deck for 2 creatures of our choice, put them into play. Insane. You're not going to get your cast triggers if you go the big Eldrazi's, but I mean, there's still some really scary stuff you can grab. So either way, if this resolves, we're going to be way ahead. Now we have Rhystic Study. Drawing cards, it's just, I mean, that's what this deck needs. It needs its draw power. So yeah, Rhystic Study is amazing. Okay, so Dictate of Kruphix is purely in here for flavor. It's flash at the beginning of each player's draw step, draw an additional card. You can hold out on this until the start of, before the start of your turn and flash it in so no one else gets the draw, but then after that they're going to get the draw. It is purely in here for flavor. It's given everyone an extra draw, but including you, so still a decent card, but if I was playing in a tournament, I wouldn't run this. Telepathy. I think this card is really silly. Your opponents play with their hands revealed. I mean, you just know what's coming at all times, and your hand's not revealed. Our play group's a good sport about this card, but you might be surprised how quickly you piss people off with this. Nobody likes their hands to be revealed. And for 1 mana, it's hilarious. And then Leyline, it's the same thing as Veldalkin Ori. It's flash, and then if you open with it just comes out. So super. I mean, if you actually open with this and some decent mana, you can do some crazy stuff. Propaganda, because we don't have a whole lot of creatures, so you know, people that are very combat heavy, this deck does have some issues with. That's it for that. Alright, we got a couple Planeswalkers in here. I used to run a couple more. I used to run Karn and Ugin, but they're just okay, so I took them out. Master of Time is great just because you can phase stuff out, even stuff of your own that would get removed or targeted, and then we're basically hand fixing on everyone's turn. Really cool card. And Oko, oh man, this card is just scary. The fact that you can make people's commanders turn into Elks with no abilities and you're plussing from it is crazy. I mean, honestly, you're really only needing to do that second ability. You might create food if you got nothing else. The -5 is okay, but really that +1 is what makes this card just insane. So just those guys on the Planeswalkers. Next up, we have some of our draw power. So we have Biomatic Mastery, kind of an underrated common card. I think it's pretty cool, but it is situational. You draw a card for each creature target player controls, then draw a card for each creature another target player controls. So anyone who's running big tribal decks with tons of like vampires, with just tons of squirrels, elves, whatever it might be, you're going to get a lot of draw for this. And the fact that it's selecting 2 players is pretty cool. So I like this card. Finale of Revelation. This is one of our X spells that can send us over the top if you actually get to put 10 into X. you untap 5 lands, no maximum hand size the rest of the game, and then this gets your library gets shuffled in your graveyard. It's such a cool card, really powerful when you have that mana. Gitaxian Probe, it's essentially free opening, or whenever you use it if you're okay with paying 2 life, otherwise it's just a blue. Look at target player's hand, draw a card. It's really nice to see what you're dealing with, especially if someone's a big threat to you. So yeah. Blue Sun Zenith, kind of the same thing as the other one. It has less effects, but it does get shuffled back in. So yeah, it's just nice for draws. Growth Spiral, draw a card, play another land, just 2 mana. It's not bad. Brainstorm, draw 3, put 2 back. Kind of good for hand fixing. It's decent. Ponder, kind of the same thing. It's decent, just for hand fixing. Mystical Tutor, we have so many sorceries in instance. Oops, sorry. It's just great to be able to get something out that we really need. Dramatic Reversal, there's the card I was talking about that pairs with Isochron. It's also a really good card just to play in general. You can really come back just off of this. Obscuring Haze, sometimes we might just be sitting on Kruphix. It's pretty common that we have no creatures to block with half the time, and we're just waiting to get something good. So this is nice to prevent all damage. You can kind of falsify how open you really are. So prevents all damage. And it's all damage dealt by creatures, so it doesn't have to be through combat. So any creatures that just ping you in some kind of way, they won't. Show and Tell, this is kind of the lottery card for everybody, where everyone just gets to put something scary on board. But sometimes early game, not all decks just have big 10 mana creatures waiting to go. But I mean, I think it's just fun. It spices up the game, and it's not always about winning. So sometimes you can just really have some exciting chaos happen with that card. Now we're moving on to kind of just our like removal in a sense. So we got Rabid Hybridization, Polymorph Jest. This is one of my favorite blue cards. I've had it since my very first deck. It was Azuri. The amount of laughs that I've had personally, maybe not so much my opponents, but this card is just like kind of infamous in our group. Turns everything someone has into 1/1 frogs with no abilities. The amount of times, I cannot tell you how many times someone has like swung into me for game essentially with like crazy big creatures, and I turn them all into 1/1 frogs and start blocking with my little creatures, and it's just, oh man, it's crazy. Fun card. Pongify, more removal. Curse of the Swine, it exiles X target creatures, so this can get rid of a lot of problem cards for low amount of mana. They do get 2 green boars, but I mean, that's nothing. Cyclonic Rift, yeah. Don't need to say anything about that. I still feel like it should be banned, but Crow's Grip, I love the split second. It's the only reason why I'm running it. When someone puts a combo piece that's basically game, they can't respond and activate the ability just because of the split second. So very powerful card. This one's new. I haven't even actually tested it yet. Exile all creatures, and then everyone creates a fractal token that has X counters equal to the amount of power that was exiled. So this could make everyone have like one really huge creature that you have to decide if you want to swing or block with it. It's pretty cool. It's a cool concept, and it's a board clear for green blue. Like, that's crazy. A little bouncer, bounce back to hand, just kind of a little removal. Beast Within, same thing, removal. Moving on to counterspells, we got Negate. I mostly just play it because the artwork is really cool. Force of Will, super strong. You can substitute Force of Will literally for any cheap counterspell. You don't absolutely need it, but when you have a lot of cards in your hand, it makes Force of Will very dangerous. Swan Song, great card for 1 mana, super good. Plasma Capture, because I mean it is 4, so it's expensive, but I mean you're stealing the mana just like a mana drain, and in this deck it's great because it's not going to empty, assuming you have your Kruphix. Delay, nice card for 2 mana. Mental Misstep, super good, very crucial in tournaments. To be able to basically free counter for 2 life anything that's 1 mana cost. And then I run Unwind and Rewind mainly because we can reuse our mana again, so it's nice. They're counter spell and counter non-creature spell, and then you untap essentially the lands that you may have used for this, so it's preferred to use your lands instead of your artifacts when you're going to use these cards. And then we could just tap them on end phase, our lands again, and empty them to our pool if that's what we want to do. Stifle, super good. counter an activated trait ability. It doesn't even matter if it's a creature or not. This card is very, very clutch. It's too bad there's not more cards that are like this, at least that I'm aware of. I don't know of too many. Excuse me. Next we have the Mana Drain. Very, very powerful. One of the best counter spells in my opinion. And especially in this deck, you're adding the colorless for whatever that mana cost was, and it's 2 blue. So, great card. Fierce Guardianship, it's free when we have Kruphix out, counter a non-creature spell. If and when we're ever tapped out and have no blue, this card is saving grace. It's almost like the Pact. I can't even think right now. The Pact where it's free or you pay 5 or lose or whatever. But yeah, this is super good. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. And then last we have just a generic counterspell. Again, this is essentially our police package of control, just to make sure things go our way and to make sure we can deal with threats. And then last but not least, we have our land base. So I have a pack of the beautiful Nyx lands. We're running 6 blue, and I think I got 5 green. Yeah, 5 green, so a total of 11 basics. I used to run Cultivating Kodamas, but it didn't really seem that necessary with all the mana ramp we have. So yeah, so those are the basics, and then these are all non-basics. We have Rejuvenating Springs. I'll have a little closer in case you guys want to read some of these. Mystic Sanctuary, bring back sorcery or instants, I believe, right? Yeah, and puts it on top, super good. Fine Glimmer Snarl, beautiful. I think it was Kaldheim. Really cool card. Reveal a forest or island, and then it comes in untapped. You have My Coast, Command Tower. Lonely Sandbar, when we have too much mana and we draw this and we're like, I don't want another land, we cycle it. Draw again. Breeding Pool, Simic Growth Chamber, Tide Channel Pathway, Temple of Mystery, Mossor Bridge, super cool. I love Mossor Bridge. Anytime I get to play it, I try to play it. Hinterland Harbor, Flooded Grove. This one, Bosenju, Who Shelters All. Really, really good. So, yes, you have to pay 2 life, and it adds 1 mana of any... adds 1 generic, sorry. But if you use that mana to cast an instant or a sorcery, the spell can't be countered by spells or abilities. So it guarantees basically you're powerful. Like, let's say you're going to sink 13 into one of the draw spells, and that gets countered for like a single instant or whatever, like Dispel or Counterspell or whatever mana leak. This protects our sorcerers and instants because we have so many of them. Alchemist Refuge gives you another way to get flash out through a static land, so it's going to be more likely to stay once it's on board. It does cost 2 blue, or a green and a blue, but great card. Then we have Dreamroot Cascade, and then last we have Buried Ruin, just for returning artifacts back. It's really the only reason to run it. So yeah, that is the full land package. It's a little bit less on the lands because it has all the artifact ramp. It has Kruphix storing the mana, and then it also has those creatures that also give us mana. So yeah, and then I was going to go on to the other portion I was talking about earlier, is with the budget and some alternatives you could run. I'm just going to show you a few different things that you can sub in place of like some of the Titans and other things like that. So assuming you're running some less expensive cards, I used to run these guys, Strategic Planning and Opt. They're really, honestly, I just ran them because of the artworks, but they're decent. Look at the top 3, pick one, the rest go in the grave. Scry one, draw one. Not too bad. I did have the Karn and the Ugin as some alternatives. Next we have, let me move this out of the way. If you're gonna run this package or you want a heavy Eldrazi package, I recommend Temple and the Ugins, Eye of Ugin, I think. Yeah, Eldrazi's are 2 less, and you can sack it, search on Eldrazi. There's Ulamog Ceaseless, Exile 2. I don't think he's that cheap, actually, but he's less than those other ones, but he's kind of expensive. Indestructible 10/10, they exile 20 cards when he swings, and this is just good removal, 10 generic. Eldrazi Conscription, one of my favorites. You just basically make any creature +10/+10 Trample Annihilator. Super scary. You could even put this on Birds of Paradise, and yeah, it's going to be terrifying bird. Great card for 8 mana. Obviously, if you lose the creature, you lose that too, but still, really good. If That Betrays, This I only recommend running if you're going to run a lot of Eldrazi's. It's Annihilator 2, 11/11, but it's 12 mana. Whenever anyone sacks a non-token permanent, you gain control of it. So when you have a lot of Annihilator on board, this thing is absolutely terrifying. Next we have Pathrazer. Here's one of our biggest budget cards. He's 11 to drop, 9/9 Annihilator 3, but you can only block him with 3 or more creatures, so you can't just block him with 1. So pretty good, and he's really cheap. I think he's like $1. Void Winnower, I think this is like 10 or 20 bucks. I'm not super familiar with prices. This is just super mean. People can't cast, opponents specifically can't cast spells with even converted mana, and can't block creatures with even converted mana. So if we have any creatures with even converted mana, they're basically unblockable. Kozilek Great Distortion, super cool. You drop to 7 when you cast him, and then you can discard cards to counter if your mana cost is the same as theirs. I'd almost consider putting this in. I mean, it's like I said, I did dumb it down less Eldrazi, but I mean, some of these guys are, I would say you can easily put them in. And then Artisan of Kozilek, Annihilator 2, 9 mana, it's a 10/9, and when you cast him, you can return a creature from grave to battlefield. Almost every time I've played this, I have never had like creatures in the grave that I could summon, which is, you'd think I would, but I swear like half the time I never have. But it's still really good for the mana cost. I mean, Annihilator is just so good. And then we have Ulamog's Crusher. Annihilator 2, he's an 8-drop for an 8/8. He has to attack each combat. And then a couple alternative counters. Dispel, Mana Leak. There's so many you can run to just swap out anything that's more expensive. The full Eldrazi package is fun, but your playgroup, unless they really like Eldrazi's, you know, I think it's fine once or twice, but if you're planning on playing this with a group of actual friends over and over, maybe just limit it down a little bit. But if they have some scary decks too, I mean, you know, they should be able to handle that. Overall, I really like the deck. It's super fun. I think the commander's really unique and interesting, and it brings like a really cool way of playing, and the way that opponents have to interact with Kruphix is pretty unique too, because he can eventually become a creature, and then he's just an indestructible creature. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I meant to get this deck up sooner. I know a couple of you have been asking for it. I do have a couple different renditions of the deck too. Maybe I'll do like a full power version down the road, where it's, you know, as competitive as I can make it. But I'm not sure on that, because I don't really play like that. A lot of these decks that we show are all ones we play with our friends, sometimes in tournaments, but you know, we're playing to have fun. So we want it to be competitive, but not, you know, just looking for infinite win cons and stuff like that, because we don't have a whole group that does it. So it's just kind of weird if you have one player doing that kind of stuff. But anyways, stay tuned for more deck profiles. Thanks for watching the video, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let us know. I am planning on getting this deck up on Moxfield if you guys are wanting me to do so, so you can just see the whole deck list and playtest hands, things like that. So just let me know if that's something you're interested in, and I will work on getting that built onto Moxfield, and I'll put a link in the description. Anyways, thanks again. Have a good day, guys.